personal survival, not as some abstract sociological lesson, you see, but something they have to understand in order to survive. Until we're prepared to hear it from them, we are not a free country, and we are not truly a liberated country. And so I, as a white male, need to be upfront about that. It's very nice for people to come when I speak, and it's very nice for people to buy my books and read my essays and all that good stuff, but when people of color are asked to give these talks, we got to also be here. We also have to show up for that. We also have to listen to what they have to say, because they're the source of so much of my own wisdom around the subject of race. And so if one is going to listen to me, one should probably listen to the folks who were my mentors and my teachers, and those are principally people of color. So that said, we can now get down to business. On the one hand, one thing I've learned, I've been doing this for a long time. I've been an anti-racism activist or educator in some capacity for 25 years, 20 of those on the road. And in that 25 years, you do anything for 25 years, you learn a few lessons. One of the easy lessons that I've learned in that quarter century is that nobody really likes to have this conversation, right? That sort of surprised me. Like, I thought this would be, easy stuff. And then I came to realize that people don't actually like to talk about race and racism. Imagine that. Right? Nobody really enjoys the talk. People of color don't like doing it. White folks don't like doing it. Now, we have different reasons for that. Okay? According to the research, folks of color don't like talking about racism, particularly with white people around. Right? Because folks of color have learned something over the course of their lives. Mostly what they've learned here is that white folks oftentimes, when the subject comes up, will shut down or will minimize their concerns or marginalize them or diminish their concerns or accuse them of playing the race card, which is a phrase that white folks came up with 15 years ago because we didn't want to deal with social reality anymore. So we came up with that as a way to get out of talking about it. And so people of color have learned sometimes it's easier to just shut down than actually confront the topic with white folks. So they just shut down and they stuff their experiences with racism and don't talk about it around us. Now, white folks, according to the research, also don't like to talk about race and racism, and we're also afraid, but it's not the same fear. We're not afraid of being shut down. We're not afraid of being marginalized or minimized or retaliated against, but we are apparently afraid, again, according to the research. This is not me talking, this is all these academics and scholars who research the subject, that white folks are deathly afraid that if we talk about race and racism with folks of color in the room, we're going to say the wrong thing. Oh my God. We're going to say something stupid, and then they're going to think we're racist. Oh my God, they're going to think we're racist. Okay, news flash for the white people in the room. If you're worried about people of color thinking you're racist and that's why you don't talk about race, okay, here's the news flash. People of color already start with the assumption that you damn well might be racist. So to think that just by not talking about it, you're going to somehow disabuse them of that notion, that's not how it works, right? And people of color don't suspect that of us because they're overly judgmental. It's just they've been here for a minute. People of color have been around long enough to know that we've all been socialized to internalize racist thoughts. Hell, they know that they've internalized them against themselves. The research tells us that folks of color have internalized some of the negativity toward their own group and other groups of color. So if they've fallen prey to it, they figure the odds are pretty good we white folks did too. So the irony is, by not talking about it, we're not going to actually diminish the suspicion that we might be racist. In fact, there's a whole nother body of research from Northwestern University in Chicago a couple years ago, which found that, interestingly, it's the very moment when white folks don't talk about race, even though it's the elephant in the room, the big topic that everybody's avoiding, right? It's precisely when we refuse to talk about it that folks of color are most likely to get suspicious that the reason we're not talking about it is because we're racist. Right? So here we are, we're like, oh, we're not going to talk about this. We don't want them to think we're racist. And then people of color are like, yeah, I know why you're not talking. You're a big old racist. So the irony is we'd be better off to just have the conversation, right? To take the risk, and maybe we will say the wrong thing, and maybe we will screw up, and maybe we will, offend somebody or do something wrong. But you know what? Then we do what adults do when they make mistakes, is they pull up their big people pants and they get back to work, instead of running away from it like children who are afraid to engage in anything that is conflict or difficult, right? But I know why we don't want to talk about it, because there are a lot of voices that are telling us we ought not to. It's not just that we're afraid, we're actually being told not to, right? We have people running around saying things like this, well, Tim, if it weren't for people like you, meaning, those of us who do anti-racism or civil rights work, if it weren't for people like you, racism would be dead. It's people like you that keep it alive by talking about it, right? You've probably heard people say that or some version of it. The conversation is what makes the problem worse. If we would just stop talking about it, it would go away. Well, of course, that makes perfect sense in an idiotic kind of stupid way. Because I'm sure you can imagine other social problems where we would make that argument, right? Other problems where we might counsel silence as the solution for the problem, like world hunger.